In addition to being the elder chairperson, I am also the admin chairperson, and I started that role before my role as elder. I've been part of this team for going on 23, 24 years, if I had to guess. And we handle the business, legal, financial aspect of things around the church. Things like we've done hiring, we've done severance packages, we've done refinancing the mortgage, we've shopped for insurance, we do all sorts of that type of thing. And over the past few years, we've really revamped that team to get a little bit younger, as some of us are getting near the later stages of our church service. So I want to make sure you know who that team is. Doug Hassler is our treasurer, and then we have Brian Laney, Scott Stark, Megan Coors, Aaron and Josh Walker, Mark Heinzman, Nancy Kinsey, and myself. So we work behind the scenes to make sure all of this stuff gets taken care of. We do have a major change in that team that I want to make sure I bring up to everybody. And when I say major, it's pretty major. Major for all of us involved in that team, and major for all of the elders and staff folks. Doug Hasley will no longer be our treasurer moving forward. He has faithfully served us in that position for more years than I can count, and has just been instrumental in keeping us on track financially over the course of the years. Part of what I've always felt is important is transition, and we've been working hard to transition. Doug has been working side by side with one of the newer members of our team to help us transition to what would be next from a treasurer standpoint, and I'm very pleased to announce that Brian Laney will take over as the church treasurer effective at the first of the year. So there's been a changing of the guard. Brian Laney is a CPA, and he works for PricewaterhouseCoopers, and he has proven to be very, very capable as we've worked over the last year plus to transition. Doug has graciously agreed to stay on the administration team as a team member, and will be able to counsel and coach Brian along the way if at all necessary. So thank you, a heartfelt thank you to Doug for his many, many years of service, and thank you to Brian for stepping up. That's a big job that doesn't get a lot of recognition. There's many, many hours of work that goes into that at their homes, in the office here, and really, really is a big deal. So I told Doug I would tone down all my jokes and zingers about the CPAs and whatnot. I'm just going to cut them out all together so we can just make certain that we properly thank him for his service. So moving along, we want to get into the budget information and what you're going to be asked to vote on. It's not a whole lot of big changes, but things worthy of pointing out. As we go through the slides, we'll ask, the first and foremost is we've got to have giving and income to make it all happen. We feel very good about where we're going to finish the year from a giving standpoint. And when you see that word income, you think, well, what does that mean? Or do we, is Ben delivering groceries on the side, or are we driving Uber or anything like that? The answer to that is no, but we're getting significant interest income from our investments now. We work hard to make sure we're fiscally responsible with the money that we do have in reserves, and we continue to make some very good interest on that money. So giving and income includes all of the giving that you all generously give, and then it includes interest income that we receive as well. We really are excited about the giving. In spite of having folks retire, in spite of having folks with career changes, we continue to do very well from a giving and a generosity standpoint, as a lot of the younger members of our church have really stepped up when it comes to their giving. We've got a lot of new members in the church. Years ago, I used to use a couple of words that my friend Josh gave me, and he said we were precariously perched because we had so many members of the congregation that were 55, 60, 65 years old and working toward changing income levels and whatnot. And now it's a very diverse group at our church, as we have folks that are coming in the doors that are 25, 30 years old and at the beginning of their walk, their giving and whatnot. So we've seen a lot of maturity there as well. So we think we're going to have about $356,000 worth of income next year, And as a group of administrators and ministry team leaders, we're going to figure out how to spend all of that money. So we'll take a little bit of time and go through that. You could switch the slides for me there. Our single largest expense is to make sure we can generously pay our staff, and that being Ben and Zach and Nancy. We have what we feel is a fair amount in there, and we have a fair pay increase budgeted for next year as well, and we felt that that was important for us to continue to honor their work here at the church and to continue to offer reasonable pay increases. And sometimes they can considered to be generous for sure, but it's an open book. When you see that on there, there's a total number on there. You can actually go to the budget and you can see by line, so you can see, what do we pay Ben? What do we pay Zach? What do we pay Nancy? How much do we spend, for their health benefits and all of those things? So we want to be extremely transparent. If you see anything that you have a question about, I, myself, or any member of the team can handle that for you. And if I don't know the answer, I can certainly get you headed in the right direction to make sure you get that. But our salary and benefits, as you can see, we think we're going to spend about $213,000 next year, and that is the lion's share of what we bring in. And then that second largest expense, as we turn the slide one forward, is what I refer to politely as the house payment. Our mortgage is very expensive, and along with an expensive mortgage comes some heavy utilities and that type of thing. On one of your handouts, you can see under the noteworthy discussion points, if you look at the two different lines together, we now have more money than we owe on our mortgage. So that's exciting news. If we were so inclined, we could write one big check and just get rid of the mortgage. Probably not the right thing to do responsibly in case we have expenses that come up, in case we have giving that goes down, in case we have damage to the building, whatever that might look like. We do have a cash reserve policy so that we have to make sure we maintain a certain amount of cash on hand. But what we did do this year, and you'll see that, you can look a little bit further on there on the bottom of one of the handouts, you see that we're cash flow negative for the year. And that's because we decided to pay additional money toward the mortgage. Nancy just wrote a check for $30,000 to help pay down that mortgage. So we continue to be responsible with the excess that we do have to try to eliminate the debt. I can tell you as a senior leader in the church, that's one of the things that keeps me awake at night is the money that we owe. Because if we didn't have $50,000 a year to pay toward a mortgage, that would put us in a much better position financially to, whether it's hiring additional staff, whether it's investing more in missions and benevolence, making building improvements, whatever that might look like. But we continue to work our way in the right direction on that mortgage. So all of the rest of the items after you get past the salaries and staffing and the building really are, we won't call them the minor profits, we'll call them the minor expenses. As we go through and you see office and administration and church operations, we're happy to go through that with you line by line, but in the interest of time, I'm not going to do it. You've got a second handout that tells you literally every dime that's scheduled, whether it's for what we rent from an answering machine, pay for the security system, pay to get the trash picked up. And I use the trash pickup. I know I've used this example before, but some of you are new. To let you know how seriously we take all this, Nancy and I have worked together on things before to save $30 a month or to save $15 a month. We try to make good decisions that are going to be right for the church, but also get us a service provider that is going to give acceptable service to us with whatever that area might be. So we do scrutinize all of the expenses. We also ask every ministry team leader, what do they need to do their ministry? So if somebody is in charge of something, what do you need to effectively minister? And then we typically give all of that, unless it's Tom, because, man, he when he was a kid, his Christmas list, he was probably asking for a Corvette and all that kind of stuff. So he always asks for the moon, knowing that we're going to cut him back a little bit. But that, seriously, thank you to Tom. He's involved in so many ministries and takes it all seriously and really does a good job tracking down estimates and being a part of that. And that's really what we want out of our ministry team leaders, is for them to care enough about it to do their homework and tell us what they need to do their ministry. And then as a team, we work hard to be able to provide them with that. So you can see line by line, what exactly we're spending all that money on that you're giving. I do want to highlight, if we can move forward to the benevolence and missions slide, that we've upped that amount as our offering continues to be very generous. We wanted to be more generous with what we're sending out, and we added another $2,500 to that line this year, to the total line, if you will. So we're excited to be able to continue to do that. And that's one ministry where we make sure we spend every dime. If we allocate a certain amount for postage and we don't use it, we don't go buy extra stamps. It's just not what we do. So if we have a savings someplace, I, for one, am excited we have a savings. Other people not so much, but I get super excited about savings. In this area, we're not looking to save money. If we've got $25,000 budgeted, we spend it all. If we've got $27,500 budgeted, we spend it all. We make sure that money goes out to people. And then we actively look for people and things and missions that we can make certain that we're doing good work with that money. So, at the end of the day, you can see that down there we are budgeting $355,000, and $653, and then we're going to have just a surplus of $547, and that's if it all works out. Inevitably, things will change over the course of the year. We'll have expenses that we don't plan. We'll have things planned for that we don't spend the money. People will get crazy ideas like building prayer rooms and hanging blinds, and they'll come at me with additional expenses, and we'll figure out a way to make all those things happen. This is a very good estimate. It's a very good guideline. We will work very hard to toe the line, but we won't be unreasonable. If something breaks down, we're going to say, we're not going to fix that, not in the budget. But we do work hard to make certain that we give you this information, we stick to this information, but we also understand we have ministry to do here at this church. So when things come up, we work very hard to make certain that we can deliver what we need in order to do ministry here at the corner of 141st and Allisonville. I want to bring up just a couple more things when we look down at the noteworthy discussion items that are written on the bottom there. I already talked a little bit about the loan balance and the cash reserves being in a good spot, but I wanted to mention that the building is almost 20 years old. Stuff happens. We've been working very hard to keep it nice, but you just see things. We have a major parking lot situation that we're dealing with now. We have a crater over by the dumpster that's going to have to be fixed. We have a couple furnaces that have not been replaced yet that are going to have to be done. We constantly are having different things pop up here and there. So we're going to continue to work hard on making certain that we keep this building nice. We put the new carpet in. We painted over the last couple years. We're going to be doing work in the parking lot. We're upgrading lights from time to time. So a lot of different things going on as we continue to honor God here and to make certain that we have a place that is going to be inviting for seekers who come in the door, and just provide us the part of the physical tools we need to minister to people. Something else that you'll see in your budget that I want to bring up, and last year we did this for the first time. We offered Ben a sabbatical, and then we offered a stipend along with that to help him enjoy that time off. As a leadership team, we determined as a group that 7 years was going to be that magic number, that we were going to offer a sabbatical every 7 years. And I'll be darned if Zach isn't celebrating 7 years with us at coming up very shortly. If he hasn't already, I'm not sure of the exact date. But in 2025, we're going to be offering Zach and Hannah a sabbatical and offering the same amount of cash to go along with that. So along with that, you'll see in the budget that we have some money in there for guest leaders or guest speakers. It's not unrealistic to think we might have to bring in some guests possibly to lead worship, depending on the availability of the very capable team that we have. Zach's going to work hard with that team to figure out what the dates are going to be best for his family and for the coverage, but if necessary, we're happy to pay somebody to come in. I've been tuning up the vocals a little bit lately, and no, that's one hat I'm not willing to put on. But you're going to see that in there. And again, in the issue of transparency, you're going to say, well, Zach, a sabbatical, he hasn't been here 10 years yet, and we didn't give Ben one until he was here 10 years. So we're going to, and through Ben's information that he gave us about the sabbatical, through significant discussion and research, we decided that 7 years was going to be the magic number. Hasn't been 100% decided on yet, though, so that'll probably land Ben another one at year 14. So we'll get caught up and we'll make it as fair as we possibly can. So that's a big one that's going to be on there as well. And that's really the only pertinent information we have from a budgeting standpoint. But again, I just want to let you know that I'm happy to take questions from up front, happy to take questions afterward, happy to take questions via email, text, phone call, carrier pigeon, however it is you can best get them to us, because we want to be 100% transparent on everything. Want to say thank you very much. A church of I don't know what our average attendance is on the back of the program. It's probably 90 or so. If everybody who called Prairie View Christian Church their home showed up on the same exact Sunday, maybe we'd have 125, 130 people here. And to be able to have an offering of $350,000 to minister to the community is just incredible, just incredible. So thank you all for what you do to support the church. Thank you for our staff, Ben and Zach and Nancy. Thank you to the elders and the administration team and the ministry team leaders for putting the information together. The vote will open, I would imagine, relatively quickly. Joshua typically handles that, and I imagine he has it active right now, and he's tested it. And who amongst you thought that Joshua would know who Blake Bortles was? I know Mark knows who Blake Bortles is. There's not very many who know who Blake Bortles is. He's a has-been backup quarterback who's been retired for a while. And 20 or so plus years ago when I met Joshua, we started talking about sports. And you have come so far, I can't believe it. So Blake Bortles voted no, and I was sad to see that. But the vote has been tested. It's up. It's there. And we're happy to take votes after the meeting today and then over the course of the next 2 weeks. So any questions that I can answer before I invite Ben up and we continue on? Perfect. No questions that anybody wants to ask here. But seriously, reach out. If you're not the type that wants to raise your hand or ask a question here, reach out. I'm happy to answer everything. We want to continue to be 100% transparent. So I'll bring Ben up, and we'll go over the bylaw information. And what we'll do is I'll kind of, he'll kick things off talking about, the whats and the whys, and then I'll dig a little bit deeper talking about some of the nuts and bolts of it. But again, it's 11 pages. We're not going to read them all to you. We've provided a lot of information via email and a wonderful video for you to watch. So we'll just, it'll be a high-level overview. But again, transparency, happy to answer any questions that you have.
All right. So, again, I'm kind of here just to explain why we revised the bylaws, or would like you to vote to revise the bylaws, kind of just what our reasoning was. You can read more about that in my blog post back in June. I put up a blog post talking about how, hey, we're going to revise the bylaws, and here's some of why we're doing it. A lot of information can be found there. Or you can watch Joshua's video, which it's 16 minutes long. And I will admit, when I first saw it on like Wednesday or Thursday, and I saw it was 16 minutes, I was like, oh man, 16-minute video on the bylaws. But then I watched it, and I realized that he did a really nice job of hitting on the stuff that's very important, very notable, breezing over the stuff, but also not neglecting it. That's a little less important. So I would really encourage you to watch that video. In fact, if you have questions about the bylaw revision, there's a very good chance that it's addressed in that video. So if you're not comfortable asking a question here publicly, or if you're kind of 50-50 about should I ask this question, should I not ask this question, go watch the video, and there's a pretty good chance that you're going to get an answer. So, more than anything, the reason we decided to revise the bylaws, first, we've seen other churches encounter crises.
Ben, go to the podium.
Oh, I need to be on video.
Thank you.
First reason that we decided to revise the bylaws is that we've seen other churches encounter crises and scandals, quite frankly, and those churches have been ill-equipped to handle them because their bylaws were not very helpful. We don't want to be the church that only bothers to look at the bylaws when the you-know-what hits the fan. When there's some controversy, when someone's getting fired, that's the only time that a lot of people and a lot of churches look at their bylaws, and we don't want that to be the case here. So right now, while things are stable, things are peaceful, that makes this a great time to shore things up so that we're better prepared to handle a crisis when it arises. We want to check out the boat before it springs a leak, not when it's already sinking. So that's why we chose to revise the bylaws. Another reason we made this decision is that, quite frankly, just a lot of time has passed, and we don't want the bylaws to become so outdated that they're not really helpful in guiding our decisions or guiding our policies, or become so outdated that they're not really applicable to the changing situations that we find ourselves in. A lot can change over the course of 5 or 10 or 15 or 33 years, which is about how old this church is. So we want to keep them fresh, keep them updated. That way they actually do what we want and need them to do. And then third, I think we did this for the sake of institutional or organizational integrity. We really just want to make sure that our polity, which is how we say we're going to operate, and our practice, which is how we actually do stuff, we want to make sure those things are in alignment. We don't want to say one thing in the bylaws and then do another thing where the rubber hits the road. So I would just stress that our reasoning was not nefarious. We didn't have any specific agenda. And if you're the kind of person who sits back and says, that's exactly what someone who's nefarious would say, I don't know what to tell you at that point. I would just simply ask you to trust us. And again, we're being transparent, so we're not trying to sneak anything by you. Everything's available for you to take a look at before anything is finalized. One last comment I'll make, and Joshua draws attention to this in the video. The marriage addendum at the end of the bylaws is untouched. And as much as I would like to take sole credit for that part of the bylaws, and Joshua's comments in the video are very flattering about that, I'll point out that Terry Blaker, Nancy Kinsey, and Erica Trusty were involved in putting that marriage addendum together many years ago. And it's held up very well. We have no plans to abandon that addendum at all. So if you think that we're trying to be tricky in that way with revising the bylaws, no, that's not what we're doing. So there you go. That's kind of just some of the reasoning, some of the rationale behind doing it. With that, I'll kind of let Craig hit on some of the main points.
Thanks, Ben. And notice how I moved back to the podium without any additional instruction. You should have seen it. You couldn't see it back there, but it was Ben and I weren't catching the clues that we were getting. Hey, and there's zero chance I'm going to use a word like nefarious. But if you need to know the word when he said, you know what hits the fan, I got that one if anybody needs it. So. Again, it's 100% transparency, but I'm not going to read this entire document. Everybody has a one-page handout. I'm just going to let you know some of the details of what went behind the conversations. We had multiple meetings, spent multiple hours, had multiple good debates before we came to agreement on how we were going to move forward. And as you'll see on the sheet, and then if you watch the video, you'll see that as well. It really breaks down into 4 different categories. And the first one we found that no matter how many times we look at something, we spell something wrong, or we put a comma in the wrong place, or an apostrophe, or something happens that we go, that didn't quite make sense. So we cleaned things up from a grammar standpoint. Punctuation, organization, routine spelling has been cleaned up. So that was the easiest stuff to go through. And then we had some procedural updates reflecting the normalization of our online practices. Times are changing. In other words, we used to hand out the paper ballots, and we've really changed and evolved the way we've done things over the years. And we thought that was important to include those types of things in the bylaws. So those first two categories are just real minor changes. One of the big ones is further refining our 2018 membership emphasis. Typically with membership comes the right to vote on things, whether it's a new senior pastor or electing elders or approving budgets. And we found that we go through the membership rolls relatively frequently. And if we're going through the membership rolls and we go around the table and we say, well, when's the last time you saw them? When's the last time you saw them? And somebody doesn't even know who they are, we probably have a legitimate debate on whether or not they're a member with a capital M, if you will. So we've got some things in there that will help define what, and I think the term we might use is limited. Would have to go through there. I believe it's limited membership, where, yep, you're welcome to come to our church. We're going to pray for you. We're going to care for you. But we're really not going to accept your vote on things if you're not engaged and have a good understanding of what's going on. So there's some detail about that in the bylaws, and we think that's some important stuff. And then that fourth category is governance-related modifications, mostly relating to our membership covenant and voting. If you've spent any time at all in our bylaws previously, and I don't pretend to think that many of you have gone and combed through the bylaws, but there's a lot of different information in there where some things took a simple majority, some things were 2/3, some things were 75%, and it was a little bit clunky and a little bit hard to understand, and maybe we didn't put as much importance on that voting process as we should. And one of the examples gives, you know what, if we can only get 51 or 52% of the vote on something, have we really done enough homework on it? Is it really the right thing for the church to do? Or, you know, did we just happen to get lucky that something passed? So you're going to see a lot of changes when it comes to those type of things. So we'd encourage you to, again, listen to the video if you have 15, 16 minutes to do that. It's much easier to listen to the video than it is to go through and read 11 pages, but it's all right there for you. You can read as much or as little as you want. You can listen to the video. You can ask questions privately or publicly, but these are changes that we will include on the vote. So when you open up the voting tab, if you will, you're going to see two things to vote on this year. One of them will be the budget, and the other one will be the bylaws addendum. And I'm going to know if when I'm driving home I start to get email notifications that we've got 6 or 7 approvals, that people really didn't look at the budget and really didn't look at the bylaws. So I encourage you to do that. I really encourage you to do that. If you think enough of the ministry work that we're doing here and you want to continue to be a part of this church, and it's my hope and prayer that everybody does, please take the time just to review this information and make certain that you know what you're voting yes to or what you're voting no to. We would certainly appreciate that. Any questions on what you've seen or heard to this point, whether it was in the email or the video, on one of the sheets, or something that Ben or I have said? All right, I will transition over to Ben for his ministerial update, and then we'll go to Zach after that. Thank you all very much. I'm going to turn the senior citizen light off, so you don't, because you probably won't need that.
All right. Well, as we kind of shift to the pastoral updates, you might say, I'll do what I usually do at congregational meetings. I'm going to give you some updates on kind of 3 broad categories. One is the church, one is me personally, and one is just my family. So we'll start with the church. I'm very happy with how 2024 went at Prairie View. The prayer team is up and running thanks to that great expense of the prayer room. Many of those who participate in the prayer team will tell you how much they've enjoyed it. There were people who were kind of skittish about the whole idea and, can I really go in there and pray for an hour straight? And I think a majority of the people who have done it have learned, yeah, you can. And honestly, your prayer team Sundays might be some of your favorite Sundays at Prairie View. So it's been a really good ministry so far. It's been up since April. We're going to continue doing it. And we're always welcoming more people. So if you would like to be part of the prayer team or like more information about it, please don't hesitate to talk to me. I also look at this year and think that I got to baptize 7 people in this building. which is very exciting. 2 of them were my own sons, which I love all of you, but I won't lie, baptizing your own kids is a little bit of a different experience. So that was wonderful for all kinds of reasons. I'll also say that I've really enjoyed preaching as of late. I'll be honest with you, there are times that we have sermon series here, and we get 1 or 2 or 3 weeks into it, and I think, why did I do this to myself? Why did I do this to our church? This is such tough sledding. This is such difficult study. These are such hard topics, that sort of stuff. I would just say that I've really enjoyed preaching as of late. I really enjoyed the Minor Prophets sermon series, which I thought that was one of those sermon series that had the potential to make me think, why did I get us into this? 12 weeks of it. But hey, we even extended it to a 13th week this morning with John the Baptist. So really enjoyed preaching. I'm also very pleased that our small group has welcomed 2 new families, which has been very exciting. And then finally, we've gotten our foot in the door at Harrison Parkway Elementary a few times this year with some outreach efforts, which is something I've wanted to do for a long time. So that's all very exciting. One thing I will say, pastors and politicians have this in common. When it comes to congregational meetings or states of the union, we always really like to stress how great a job we've done and how wonderful things have been. I don't really want to do that. There are some things to be very happy about and very excited about. But quite frankly, I think it'd be pastorally insensitive to not acknowledge that it's been a hard year for many of you in this church. And we can't talk about how the church is doing without talking about how you all are doing. There's been family strife, there's been career changes and financial struggles and all kinds of things in the life of this church. And we know it's been a hard year for a lot of you. It's been a hard year for us in some ways as a family, which I'll talk about here in a moment. So as well as things might appear to be going on Sunday morning, I recognize that 2024 might not be as glitzy and glamorous for all of you as I seem to be presenting it to be. So just know that we are aware, and we love you, and we pray for you, and you know who you are. Now, as I look to next year, I am planning to devote some newly freed up time and attention to just taking a long, hard, honest look at some things that we kind of just take for granted around here, or some things that we're kind of tempted to just put on cruise control here. I'm very confident that there are old things that can probably go away that really just aren't as useful as they used to be. I'm confident there are new things that we can try. I'm confident there are current things that we can do better. So for all that stuff, I'll be spending some of my 2025 just assessing our church and assessing myself and thinking how we can make this a better environment for your growing in Christ-likeness. That's our responsibility as leaders. We can't force anybody to grow, but what we can do is we can make this an environment that's conducive to spiritual growth in Christ-likeness. So I'll be thinking about how we can do that better in the coming year. For an example of one thing that's new that we can try, take a look at my November blog post about something called Sunday School and give me some feedback on that. So there you go. That's some of the church stuff. Now I'll shift to just me personally. The biggest update for me is that as of this coming Wednesday, I will be finally, completely, and totally done with my Master's of Divinity. So really appreciate all the encouragement. Really appreciate all the encouragement, all the support, all the prayers from all of you for the past 3.5 years. I truly could not have done it without a church like Prairie View behind me. I've often told people at Trinity that I could not do this without the support of this church. And so I hope and I pray that my education there is a benefit for everybody here. So along those lines, I've become increasingly convinced that theological education is incredibly important to the church's well-being. And so one thing I'm going to be thinking about is how I can use mine to benefit Prairie View. I'm chewing on how we can make quality theological resources more widely available to more people here. Zach and I have continuing education budgets, but the rest of you don't. But we still want you to have access to really sound, really reputable, really high quality theological, biblical discipleship resources. So that's something I'll be thinking about in the coming year as well. So that's the church, that's me. As far as my family, I will not lie, it's been a tough year for us. Most of you know most of this, but my grandfather died in April, which was more difficult than I expected it to be. Summer was good for the most part, but fall, outside of one very nice one-week vacation, was kind of a nightmare for us in a handful of ways. In the span of just a few weeks, our 12-year-old family dog began having health issues. We had a very expensive and unexpected car repair. I came home from church one Sunday morning in the midst of all this, and our dishwasher had broken, and Olivia was cleaning up water on the kitchen floor. And then we got some very sad news from some close family that we're still kind of working through. So some of those things are resolved, and we're grateful for that. Some of them are not resolved and are ongoing. So I would simply ask for your prayers for me and for Olivia and for the boys, just as we try to navigate all those things. So I think that covers it for now. Again, just thank you for another year of your service, another year of your giving, another year of your friendship. I said that I can't imagine trying to do my MDiv without Prairie View behind me. This year has reminded me that I can't imagine trying to navigate all the ups and downs of everyday life in a fallen world without a church family. And I'm extremely grateful that I get to call this church my home, but that I also get to be the senior minister here. My family, we love you. I love you all. We thank God for you all. We're grateful for 2024, and we're looking forward to 2025 here as well. So with that, I will turn it over to Zach.
Yep, there I am. Okay. I will do this in maybe slightly reverse order from how Ben shared. I'll begin with just some personal things and then speak about professional church things that are going on. Just a couple updates from me and the Ellsworth family. I think first is, as many of you know, my wife Hannah, she grew up in Fishers, which is why we ended up back here. But Fishers is and always has been very different from where I grew up. And but over the past, I think especially the past year, I've really felt, maybe the past few years, but especially this past year, that Fishers is becoming home. And I've always, or not always, but I've considered it home for quite some time. But at a point now where I'm going to high school sporting events because I know people in the community. We are at Target or the store, and I'm bumping into somebody who I know. And a lot of that has been just involvement with youth sports, whether it's coaching at the junior high that I've done now for several years, or as I'm beginning to coach some of my son's teams. So just getting to know people in the community has been a fun, nice thing, and there's certainly overlap for that with me being a pastor. I am conscientious of my reputation in the community, and I consider it a part of my work to be known in the community and be known in a positive way. So when I can be out and I'm at a restaurant and I'm eating and I have someone tapping me on the shoulder that I coached 7 years ago, and they say, "Hey, coach," that's cool for me, but I'm also mindful of that as just, okay, I am a pastor, and these kids that I'm working with and these people that any email they get from me is zach.e@pbcchurch.org. And so that has been a really fun, encouraging thing for me, and I think for my family as well, but certainly for me, just as Fishers is becoming more and more home and getting to know more people, and hopefully being able to continue to build on that for a long time going into the future, and beginning to not just reap fruit from that personally, but also professionally and within the church. Craig mentioned the sabbatical that is coming, so 2025, April of 2025, will be 7 years full-time at Prairie View. I was hired full-time Easter of 2018. I began part-time back in November of the end of November of 2016. So this spring will be 7 years, and leadership has been very, very, very generous with giving us or presenting us with that opportunity. I am not sure yet what we will be doing. I know Hannah has all kinds of plans of what we will be doing, and it's a matter of working some of those things out and making sure things are squared away here. I'm in part terrified of how I'm going to spend 5 Sundays away, and I say that to say I genuinely love being here on Sundays. Not just, and maybe, you might maybe roll your eyes. Oh, of course you would say that. I'm paid to be here. You would love to be here too if you were paid to be here. I don't know. I genuinely love being here. We say in our house, although we've said it less lately, but we would put a really big emphasis on Sunday being the best day of the week. Sunday's the best day of the week, and the reason it's the best day of the week is because we get to be at church. And that's not a thing that we're faking in our house. I really believe that, and I really, really do love being here. And, the personal blending into the professional, which is, frankly, a unique challenge, I suppose, and blessing that pastors face, is that their professional lives and their personal lives are very intertwined. But our family, we are incredibly fortunate to be a part of this church, and we do all love being here on Sundays, sometimes Mondays, sometimes Tuesdays. And when I say that, I mean all of us, because Hannah and the kids are often tagging along with me to come over here. But yes, sabbatical 2025, we're very appreciative for that opportunity. And then similar to what Ben said earlier, things have been, I think we're in a good spot as a church. But again, echoing what he said, that doesn't mean there haven't been hard things. And my family has also been dealing with hardship. And for several months, back in the summer, we got news also from close extended family, but close extended family, just hard things and bad things, and trying to navigate through that. And there have been several silver linings, one of them being the hardship really solidified my belief. It was a chance for myself to kind of prove to myself that I believe what I say I believe. And when faced with sin and being sinned against, or people doing things that I didn't think that I know are not right, the opportunity to trust God and hand over whatever sorrow or anger or frustration I might have. And I hope that hardship that we're still working through, but I hope that it'll translate into me being a better man and a better leader, a better pastor of this church. So I look back at that, and I wish it wasn't this way, but I'm thankful for how God is working through that. And I hope that for those of you, the others of you who are facing hardship, have gone through things, that you would be able to say the same about those things that you have gone through. Transitioning a little bit, and again, these are all kind of blended, but into the professional side of things, I just have to say thank you to all of our volunteers with kids ministry and the music ministry. I am over a lot of volunteers, and I couldn't do any of this without a very large team of volunteers. And so I'm extremely thankful for the many, many good volunteers who take what I am giving them and make it their own, make it better, improve upon it. Whether that's in the classrooms or on the stage in front of everybody playing music, I'm incredibly, incredibly thankful. And I try to say it all the time, but it's one of those things where maybe you hear it and it becomes rote a little or overly familiar. But I genuinely mean it when I say this is this is my favorite place to be. Volunteers, and not just the people I directly work with, but it's a big part of it. And I continue to be grateful every single week for people showing up and getting in the classrooms and teaching our children, mine included. and people coming up here on the stage and singing along with me and helping us out. With Kids Kingdom, I'm always looking to improve, which sometimes I think similar to maybe what Ben has said about sermons, I sometimes think, why do I do this to myself? Why don't I just pay some money to have someone else send me a curriculum and then I just hand it off? But I just can't. I even if I did that, I couldn't. So I do write our curriculum for our classrooms, and I'm always trying to figure out what's going to work best, how to improve. And so I'm never just sitting on my hands or mailing it in, phoning it in that way, which means I'm always open to suggestions, always wanting to receive feedback. But we recently made some changes back there just based on me learning and continuing to grow and different things. So, but Kids Kingdom, we're always evaluating, always looking to improve, and both with Kids Kingdom and with our music ministry, always welcoming new volunteers. Even you, Craig, coming up and singing. We got a spot. We'll put a mic in front. We'll put a mic in front of you, and I'll leave it up to Austin or whoever's in the back to dial you in if things go south. Okay. So those are two things. Another very big and important change that is happening in the life of our church is we have talked for several years now about. Hannah and I both have been doing youth ministry at the church since 2016 when I was hired part-time. And then when I became full-time, I just kept doing that. When I took over for music, it has been a long, ongoing conversation about getting that to somebody else. And very, very fortunately, graciously, I'm very happy that Dylan and Lily Shake. I married them. What am I doing? Yeah, and that's a fun thing. It was my first wedding that I got to officiate, and it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. And I'm happy I was able to do that. Dylan and Lily Shake are actually not here because Dylan, they are in San Diego, or maybe on their way back now. But he was in San Diego finishing his certificate for. He's an actuary. I don't know how all the adjectives and adverbs end up, but he now has an FSA, which I believe is the Fellowship. Yes, that's the word. That's it. Yes. So he just finished that, and him and Lily are, I believe, flying home today from San Diego. But they are going to be taking over for our youth group. They've been attending now on our bi-weekly schedule, and we're preparing to hand it over to them probably at the end of January, the beginning of February, just getting them up to speed. They just got married in November, so November was really no good to try and get them up to speed. Then December happens, and everything's crazy and so busy. And so in January, we'll kind of hit the ground running with them, and then hopefully hand the keys to the car over to them in February, and they will be taking care of that. Hannah and I both are in the wonderful position of not leaving, because a lot of times a youth pastor will leave, and that's when someone needs to come in and replace them. And so we do not intend at all to just begin ignoring the kids that we have spent so much time with over the years. But our involvement with the youth group will be maybe a little bit of a distance at first, just to make sure that we give Dylan and Lily both plenty of space to kind of establish themselves and do what they need to do. But that is a very, very good thing that is happening in our church, and I'm very, very excited about that. That said, I do have to thank Mark and Nancy, because what's my problem? For the past 8 years, they have watched our kids every Sunday, and yeah, so that's made that possible. So Hannah and I's ability to show up on a Sunday night when we used to meet on Sunday nights, or our ability to stay after church on a Sunday, greatly affected, greatly impacted by Mark and Nancy taking our kids, and otherwise they would just be bouncing around, and it's distracting enough with just the kids we have, so we don't need one or two or three more, and they've been doing that since Theo was born. So we're very fortunate for that, and as a church, frankly, if it weren't Mark and Nancy as my in-laws, I'm sure it would be someone, and that's just one of the reasons we love this church so much. So lastly, I'll just say this, as far as what's maybe coming up, something I heard several years ago, and it's 12:20, so we need to wrap, but something I heard several years ago, and it's kind of a, I guess, paradigm that I've thought about for myself for a long time, is there are two kinds of people, and you have dreamers and you have doers. And something I've realized about myself over the past several years is I'm a dreamer. I will think of lots of ideas, and then it's a matter of actually getting them done. And that's something I'm trying to work on. Lots of ideas that I have for music, for kids, for just day-to-day ministry, more generalized things that I'm dreaming about and dreaming a lot about all the time. And it's a matter of starting to do those things and get those things done. And so if you have questions about those things, feel free to ask me what those dreams might be. And honestly, that will help keep me accountable as I'm thinking about these things, if I maybe have some people pushing and prodding on some of these ideas that I have. That is all I have. Do you want me to turn it over to you? Do you want me to just pray? All right. I'll turn it back over to Ben.
Yeah, I'll just reiterate, kind of closing the whole meeting. If you have questions about the budget, talk to Craig, talk to a member of the admin team, talk to Brian or to Doug, any of those people. If you have questions about the bylaws, talk to me, talk to an elder. We would be more than willing to talk to you about that stuff as well. And then obviously you can talk to me and Zach at any point about what's going on with us. So with that, I'll pray, and we'll let you get on about your Sunday, or for some of you, get on about your baby shower. So I'll pray. Father, again, thank you for this day. Thank you for the time we had together from 10 a.m. to 11:15-ish that we so often take for granted. But thank you for just the rhythm and the privilege and the gift of weekly worship with the same people for the most part, week after week and month after month and year after year. Thank you for this community. Talking about budgets and bylaws is important because it reminds us that the church is an institution, and we have to have order and rules and policies and those sorts of things, and that's all valuable. But the church is also just a community of people, and thank you for this community of people. Leaders, volunteers, members, non-members, everybody who makes this church what it is. Thank you for these people, and thank you for this place. Lord, I pray that you would watch over our budgeting process. Thank you for the admin team's really hard work over the past few months to get that together. And I pray that you'd help us have wisdom about how to use the funds that we receive that really doesn't belong to any of us in the fullest sense of the word. We are stewards and managers of what you give us individually and as households and as a church. And so I pray that we would use those funds wisely, and that the 2025 budget would be approved, that we would stick to it, and that we would be good stewards here. We do also pray for the bylaw revision. Thank you for the suggestions that we've already received, the feedback that we've gotten, all the hard work that went into that. Again, I just pray that through that kind of yeoman's work during a time of stability and peace, that we would be better prepared to function as a church in times of normalcy, in times of crisis, because in the end, we want the church to be a shining light in this world. And part of the way that we can be a shining light in this world is just provide some semblance of order and goodness in a world of chaos and badness. So Lord, I pray you watch over that process. And I also pray for just our leadership. Thank you for people like Doug and people like Brian. Thank you for the admin team. Thank you for the elders. Thank you for Zach. Thank you for Nancy. Help us lead and serve this church well in the last few weeks of 2024 and in 2025 as well. I pray that you'd bless our efforts, and if our efforts are misguided, I pray that you would graciously thwart them and point us in a different direction. And I just pray that you would help us serve you well in the year ahead. Again, thank you for the people that make this church what it is. Thank you for this place. We love you. We lift all these goals and dreams and initiatives and bylaws and budgets and states of the church and all that stuff. We lift it all up to you. We love you. We ask this all in Christ's name. Amen.